Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. What if those of us who are optimistic that the best is yet ahead for this market cycle are wrong? What if this time is different and there is no euphoric blow-off top? Like we've already just seen the best, and Bitcoin really did peak around $126,000, and XRP really did peak at $3.65 in July of this year. What if that's that? And Ethereum, it peaked, it got a new all-time high, just poked above, right around $5,000. What if that's actually the end of it? Well, I mean, I'll just tell you this, just my humble opinion here. I do not find the arguments, in line with that's, arguing that we're in a bear market or heading into a bear market. I don't find those arguments compelling. Now, ever since the liquidation event, if you're on social media, you've noticed this. There's no shortage of a chart analysts that have flipped bearish. There's no shortage. There are tons of chart analysts that absolutely have flipped bearish because that's the way the wind's blowing, right? Now, out of the chart analysts that I follow, almost none of them have. In fact, only 2 chart analysts that I follow are warning that XRP price action could be to the negative. And I mentioned this in my very last video, and I said, these perspectives are so rare out of the group of chart analysts that I follow that I'm just going to dedicate an entirely separate video just to that. Because these perspectives are so rare, and I want you guys to see perspectives, whether it's good or bad. I just want you to see what is out there with the group of analysts that I follow, because they do have great track records on the whole. They're not, like, none of them are right about everything, but they do have great track records on the whole, and I just want you guys to come to your own conclusions about what you think is probable. And, and I said this too in the last video, out of the group of analysts that I follow, like, when they have the same or similar opinion, they're almost always correct. So if there's a minority opinion that's held by any of the analysts that I follow, it's almost always wrong. But it's not always wrong. Like an example I always like to give, because it always just comes to the forefront of my brain here, is the blockchain backer. Last market cycle, 2021, he held a minority viewpoint. In fact, he was the only analyst that I followed that said Bitcoin's going to peak the cycle roughly around $70,000. He was right. And people gave him crap for it when he was calling that, and they were mocking him. People were very rude to him. He was right. So sometimes, and that was a minority opinion, sometimes they're right. They're usually not, though. So if you're asking what I think is most probable, I think we move way higher. I do think we're going to go to the upside here. But I'm not afraid to share the negative, because here's the deal. I just want to believe whatever is true. In life, I want to believe as many true things as possible. But before going further, I do want to be clear. I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice. And you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say are right. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. And I thought I'd kick things off with this post from somebody named Danny Chang. He shared this graphic here with a quote from Peter Lynch. Now, Peter Lynch is a rather famous American investor. He had quite the storied career. He's retired now. He's in his 80s at this point. But, and I can't remember the exact numbers, but he turned, I think it was a hedge fund's assets under management into, like, I can't remember what the exact numbers were, but it was something like 14 million into like 16 billion with a B. So something million into something billion. I can't remember the exact numbers. You have to Google it to get it, but it was just massive. So he's got quite the storied career. And since we're talking about potential bearish price action here, I was like, let's kick things off with this. Here's a quote from Peter Lynch. Far more money has been lost by investors preparing for corrections than has been lost in corrections themselves. That is a brilliant quote. And I knew that was true before I ever invested in crypto. And I've been in crypto since late 2017. It's been life-changing for me in terms of what my net worth is. It's absolutely wild. And I'm not a finance guru. I'm a regular dude. Like, there's nothing special about me. All I did was buy stuff. I bought a bunch of different cryptocurrencies. XRP is my largest individual holding. I'm biased there. It is my favorite. And then I did nothing. After I bought, I did literally nothing. And I suffered through every single drawdown that there's been since then. But the chart, if you let time pass, it is up and to the right, my friends. And so there are so many people that when they're fearful, they're like, oh, I got to do something. They got to tinker with my positions. I got to get out. I'm going to try and time the market because I think it's going to go down now. And then if it goes lower, then I can buy an even cheaper. Okay, well, maybe you'll be right sometimes, but people lose fortunes doing that. And you're going to lose way more doing that than in the correction itself, Like, you're preparing for that and you're going to tinker with your position. Drawdowns happen, folks. This is why I keep saying the best message, in my opinion, that anybody in crypto could deliver to the masses is that, hodling is like hodl life effectively. Hodling is what makes sense. Holding for very long periods of time and having broad exposure to the market. Like, that's it. And this is why I have no course to sell you. I have literally nothing to sell you. I don't even have sponsors now, and I could. I reserve the right to always do that in the future, and I might. I've been running this channel a long time, and I just haven't cared about it enough because for me, this is a hobby. I love doing this. I spend hours on this every day. It's very fun. I just haven't cared to turn into something that looks more like a business. I like just this raw approach that I have where I'm just sitting behind the mic and just talking to you like I would talk to you if we were, hanging out on a patio drinking a beer. That's what I've always wanted this to be, this channel. But I have nothing to sell you. I'm just telling you the right way to go through. This is my opinion. You buy stuff and then you hold for long periods of times and recognize that you can't know for sure when the market's going to go up or down. But if you have the conviction that the market is going to trend up over a span of years and longer, and you're right, as history has shown us is the case after over 16 years crypto's existed now, then you make life-changing wealth. Do you really want to blow that by tinkering? And that's why I'd say, even if the analysts out there who are bearish right now, and even if they're right and we're entering a bear market, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do nothing. In fact, as prices plummet, if they end up being correct, I'll just buy more crypto because I'm going to keep earning new money. And then when the market inevitably rebounds, then I'll sell it at an even higher price and I'll have even more life-changing wealth. To me, that's the right approach here. Now, one of the analysts that I follow, and there's just two, but one of the analysts that I follow who thinks it's probable that XRP could be hitting some hard times here is the blockchain backer. He also has not minced words. He thinks it's more probable than not that the entire crypto market is going to enter a bear market. Not that he literally put 100% prediction on that, but he's made it very clear that he thinks that is what is most probable. And he shared this post just a couple days ago. This is the crypto total market cap excluding the top 10 coins, so it's a good picture of what happens with altcoins here. And he wrote, now that we've been ranging for 2 weeks since the liquidation, it's time to look at what typically happens after big liquidations. Common range ending outcomes eventually sweep the highs from October 13th as a bull trap. Reclaim everything, game on. Otherwise, be aware. And so that means, he's not promising that. He's just talking about directionally what he thinks is most probable. He's made that very clear. This is just one post. But he thinks there's a reasonable chance that the highs that we're seeing for this chart after that liquidation event on October 13th, so that's 3 days later, it's frequently a bull trap. And again, that in conjunction with what he stated in his videos about how he thinks it's probable, we're going to be entering a bear market, just take it for what it's worth. Now, again, this is a minority opinion, but like I just told you at the outset of the video, he held a minority opinion several years ago, and he was right about it. So, I'm going to listen to him. I personally am not convinced that we're entering a bear market. There would be too many things for me, and I'm not a chart guy, mind you. I'm largely looking at macro stuff, and yes, I'm listening to a bunch of different chart guys, sure, because I find a lot of the arguments compelling. But I'm also looking at macro, and I don't feel like I could come to a reasonable conclusion without heavily considering what's happening there. And if equities are going to continue raging higher, which history should have us believe is most probable, it'd be weird for crypto to not follow. And there's also a good argument to be made that the cycle's actually lengthening, which would explain why we haven't seen the blow off top yet. And I talked about that in my very last video. I've talked about that in a ton of videos recently. And with each passing day, it's more probable it's the case that the cycle is indeed expanding. So we'll see who's right here. And if he's right about this and we end up entering a bear market, I'm going to give nothing but praise to the blockchain backer because he would be just about the only guy that I follow that calls it. Now, there are lots of analysts that are calling for that, but the analysts that I follow, they're, as far as I'm concerned, a different breed. Okay, they're not the fly-by-night analysts, and blockchain backer certainly is not some sort of fly-by-night analyst here. He's got a long track record here. And that's why I say if he's right, I'm just like credit where it's due, and it's going to suck because I'd rather be able to sell my crypto at a euphoric blow-off top at the end of the cycle. But I'm an adult, and so if that ends up being the case, like I said, that we enter a bear market, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to panic because it doesn't make sense to panic. I know the market's going to rebound, and then we're going to rocket to the upside. That's what I believe anyway. And so I'm just going to hold and then sell at high prices later on because I can't control that. You've got to make peace with the part that you can control and the part you can't. You cannot control when the market goes, but you do control whether or not you have exposure to the market when it does. That's just how it goes. Now, The other analyst I follow who is bearish on XRP right now is chart analyst Bobby A. Now, this guy has been in the community for a long time, and he has been an XRP bull at times when it was not popular to be, okay? Like years and years and years. He was insisting XRP would go higher, and he was right about XRP breaking out this cycle. He's a respected member of our community, just like the blockchain backer, and he's concerned in the short to midterm. Now, he does not think, not that I've seen anyway, I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but I haven't seen any indication from him that he thinks that, the stock market's hit a peak or that the crypto asset class on the whole has hit a peak. In fact, I've seen the opposite from him recently. So I think it really is just the case that in the short to midterm, he's a bit concerned about XRP pulling back. And of course, if the entire asset class does, I wouldn't be surprised if XRP does. But is it going to do it in a vacuum? Yeah, that's one of the questions worth asking here. But I'm going to show you a bunch of posts from him. This one's from October 21st, so just 5 days ago. And he wrote, XRP isn't looking good at the moment, and things need to change ASAP. And so I saw that. I was like, oh, okay. I hadn't seen anything negative sound about XRP from him up until that point, and so that caught me off guard. I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting that from you, but that's fine. Whatever your perspective is, I do want to hear it. And he could be right. You just got to recognize that. And also, let me say this too before I forget. Even if the two bearish analysts that I follow end up being wrong, which is possible. Maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong. But if they're wrong, show them some freaking grace and be polite. They're taking a lot of their own time to help share their perspective and provide some insight for you, and they're doing it for free. And, everybody's going to be wrong from time to time. I'm wrong about stuff from time to time. Now, I'm not a chart guy myself, but I'm going to get stuff wrong, of course, too. And I'd like to be shown some grace. When you get something wrong, wouldn't you like it if people are nice to you and show you some grace? Well, of course. So I'm just saying, whatever happens here, just be nice. They're members of our community, all right? And they're nice dudes, so I'm just saying here. Here's another post from Bobby A. This is from yesterday afternoon. He says, it's staring you right in the face. XRP will soon be fighting the monthly, which is a headwind. Ethereum has the monthly at its back. A tailwind. We shall see. So he thinks Ethereum's looking good. XRP, it's looking a little bit more sketchy right now. Here's another post from him. He says TLDR, which of course stands for too long didn't read. Ethereum greater than XRP, midterm, in my opinion. I call it how I see it. And so look, he's just being intellectually honest here. It's not like he's some sort of fudster. He's not just crapping all over XRP like somebody that has XRP derangement syndrome. That's not him. He's telling you what he actually thinks here. And I think it's worth listening to because, I mean, I don't even know how many analysts I follow. Dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens. And so I'm always looking for the negative aspects here. They're just hard to find right now, but they're still worth listening to. Like these analysts, they're reputable. They have good track records here. Here's another post. This is also from yesterday. XRP will soon be fighting the monthly unless things change rapidly. Always flow with the tide, not against it. There are red flags. That's a direct quote. There are red flags, and he's referencing XRP here. And then there was this. This is from yesterday. He wrote, in over 3 years, when have you ever seen or heard a cautionary statement regarding XRP from me until now? Well, okay, I'll just pause here and answer for myself. For me, never. Not that I can recall anyway. If he's ever had something negative over that time period, I missed it then. I've only seen positive bullish expectations from him, so this is a marked difference compared to that. Somebody from the community named Benjamin wrote to him and said, at this point, no one knows anything. When a charter's chart is wrong, he will disappear or block people or then retweet if they're correct and say, told you so. It's like a weatherman. Give your best guess, then ultimately it's a coin flip. Carry on. And Bobby obviously doesn't find that to be a compelling perspective, so he wrote, okay, brother. And then Benjamin responded and wrote, literally 3/4 of the charters I follow on here do that. They're all contradict each other. I got 3 right now saying XRP is bullish and headed to 10. Then I got others who say it's breaking down. Something is off with all these expert charters on X. Benjamin, respectfully, I must tell you, that is not the case. You're seeing that because of who you're choosing to follow. That's why I keep insisting. The analysts that I follow, they do not just flip on a whim. They just don't. The analysts that I follow, when the market bottomed in I guess what was it? When did Bitcoin bottom? Late 2022, early 2023, whenever it was. And I remember there were calls for Bitcoin to drop to $12,000. I think it bottomed around $16,000. It was somewhere around there. At that moment, it was very popular for analysts to say, nope, we're going lower. Bitcoin's going to $12,000. XRP, everything else is going to crater. Now, those people, that was the popular opinion from chart analysts. They were wrong. But the chart analysts that I followed at the time were not saying that. They were like, guys, the market's either bottomed here or very close to here. And I talked about it on my channel at the time. So on the whole, not that every analyst I followed said that, but just about. And so that's why I keep saying you got to watch who you follow. So 3/4 of the chart analysts that you follow are behaving like that. Change who you're following. Please change who you're following. Stop following them. If you're following an analyst who is bearish more than 20% of the time, stop following them. Because I don't know how many people realize this. I actually mentioned this recently, though. If you look at even just the stock market, it's bullish. You're in a bull market 80% of the time, roughly, historically, going back to like the 1920s. If you go to like the end, like maybe it's like 1928, I can't remember exactly. I pulled up a chart within the last couple of weeks and highlighted this. But you're in a bull market like 80% of the time. So if you're following somebody who is bearish for a greater percentage of that time, like say it's 40% or something like that, you're following a fool. You're following an actual idiot. So just be careful with who you're following and follow a lot of people. Yes, I think that makes sense because you can treat each individual analyst as a data point. But if you're following people with a great track record, yeah, you're going to figure it out and you're going to be fine. You don't know for sure what's going to happen, but again, it'll give you a good idea about what's probable. Bobby A responded to that and he said, I don't do that, man. This is the first time in 3 years that I've said exercise caution with XRP. Now here's a post from a community member named Jacob Simons, and he wrote to Bobby A. He's a bit concerned. He said, hello, Bobby. I hope that you're well, man. I want to start with saying that I really respect your work and I respect your approach to crypto Twitter and the conviction you've had with XRP and the markets through every turmoil and correction. As a long-term XRP holder, when the price did not move in 2023 to 2024, when it was around 50 cents for months and even years, I found extra comfort in your unwavering conviction through everything. And I believe that many people in the XRP community with many different levels of experience share my views about you, that you're a common sense leader in the chaotic world of crypto X. So I'm thankful that you raise a warning about the higher time frame indicators regarding XRP. But there are a lot of people in this space that listen to influencers and technical analysis guys here on X and value your opinions in their own decision making regarding their crypto allocations, especially now with the blockchain backer also calling for a major correction for XRP, and he has a huge following. And I don't want people to panic and sell everything and then go and then watch XRP go to $5 to $13, as many influencers have said for years now that it will. But I do want everyone with a kind heart here to do good. So is there anything you can say to these people that maybe feel scared or confused about your change in opinion? I know it's a fact about the indicators and not your opinion, but maybe not everyone here does. The only thing people in the XRP community and people on X have heard during these last years is $8 to $13 for XRP in the 25/2026 bull run. Yeah, and so I'll pause to note that price range, that is what chart analyst Bobby A has been calling for a very long time. I've highlighted his perspective, citing that on my channel many times. All right, and then he continues and says, just maybe give the people some words of wisdom about handling this confusing situation to handle a scenario of XRP going into a multi-year correction here in the coming days/weeks. If XRP goes down or if it goes up, how should a pro investor handle this situation right now? That was all. Thank you, Bobby, for all that you do. Okay, well, I'm not going to tell any of you what to do. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. If we, again, I'll repeat it. If we go into that bear market, because how do you prepare for that? What does a pro investor do? Well, in my opinion, the smart investors, they do nothing. They just hold for really long periods of time. It works in the stock market. And so when I jumped into crypto in 2017, I was aware of that human behavior. And I was like, I bet that applies here. And it does. It sure as hell does. I'm holding tons of coins that I bought in 2017. And they're worth a fucking fortune compared to what I paid for them back then. Like way, way, way more. Pretty much everything If not literally everything that I bought in 2017 is worth way more. So, I mean, to me, that's the answer. And I don't expect to make money on every single coin that I buy. Of course not. But, that's why I keep saying, if you have broad exposure and you just wait, it's like, yeah. Because again, you cannot choose when the market goes. But you either have exposure when it happens or you don't. And so I choose exposure. And if I'm wrong about this, which is technically possible, then I lose everything and it goes to zero and I'm a sad panda. Possible. It's possible. I don't think that's going to happen. I'm not afraid of that. Now, chart analyst Bobby A., he did respond to that. He was kind enough to share some words with Jacob, and he shared it publicly. And he wrote, "Sure, brother, and thank you for the note." That's an XRP USD chart on your screen, of course. And he says, "In short, I don't like what I am seeing on the macro XRP chart. Just as I trusted my analysis at sub 30 cents, I now have to trust it well above $2. Many of the higher time frame indicators I like to monitor are crossing bearish on the monthly, and the consolidation below the 1.618 is beginning to look more like a rejection. In 6 days, XRP will be fighting the monthly, which, in my opinion, is never a good sign. Additionally, bearish monthly crosses on the Bressert have never been healthy for the asset as shown below." He means the chart on the screen. It's just that I blew it up, so now it's on the left. And he says, further, XRP is flirting with closing a monthly candle below its BMSB. Given the technical damage, there is a possibility that XRP may print a retracement, which is currently happening, and then roll over to retest lower levels as support before continuing higher. Risk management and preservation of capital should always be at the forefront of one's mind during highly uncertain times like these, when the macro begins flashing warning signals. Now, this is why I have always been a strong advocate for gradually scaling out of positions, just as I scale in. There are other things I am seeing as well, which I write about weekly for members. For what it is worth, I've been one of the loudest bulls for XRP for years, and I'm still bullish long term. However, I believe the odds favor lower levels in the midterm at this stage, given the latest market developments. Remember, markets change rapidly, and it is our job to adapt to these shifts as quickly as possible. This is just how I see it. I hope this helps. Cheers. Okay, fair enough perspective, right? There's nothing wacky or weird. He's not being some irrational fudster. He's being intellectually honest about what he sees in the charts. I appreciate that. Even if this ends up not coming to pass, totally fine. Again, it's not the case that what every reputable chart analyst think is probable ends up coming to pass. Sometimes what they think is not likely comes to pass, okay? That's just going to be the case for every single chart analyst. And so that's why, as long as you're following somebody who is competent, and then they have, over a long period of time, a track record showing that what they think is going to happen does indeed happen most of the time, well, yeah, maybe you're following someone of value then. So you got to look at the whole picture for the analyst here. So again, out of the analysts that I follow, I've only found 2 who are concerned about XRP right now. Just 2. So hopefully they're wrong. I mean, I think that they'd like to be wrong. Frankly, they hold XRP. I mean, hell, look at this post from Bobby A. Somebody asked him, will you be rotating Ethereum profits into XRP if the timing is favorable? And this is yesterday. He wrote, of course, if it is favorable. Also, I still hold a position in XRP. Okay, and so he's kind of bearish on XRP right now, but he still holds it, and he's optimistic, big picture. He made that very clear. So like I said at the outset, I just want to share, all the perspectives out there. I don't want to only share the stuff that is glowing about XRP. I want to be real about it. I always am, I always have, and always will be. And so then every now and then going to get a video like this, just breaking it down and be like, okay, here's the perspective. It happens to be a minority perspective that things are not looking so hot. But I'll tell you this too. Eventually, since these chart analysts are good at what they do, like the ones that I follow, eventually it's going to be a majority opinion that XRP is going to crater in price. So, I mean, think about it. If we have a euphoric blow off top and we're all getting our life-changing wealth and we're selling and getting what we've been waiting to get for years, like say that happens, which I think is most probable anyway, we'll see. But if that happens, these analysts are good and they're going to recognize, hey, the market's getting a bit hot here. We're probably approaching the top. And I'm going to share that on the channel. When I have tons of analysts saying, guys, hey, it's been a good run, but we got to wrap this up here. Yeah, I'm going to share that with you. I'm just telling you that's not the point that we're at right now. And so just for tons of reasons, I do not think it's probable we're actually entering a full-on bear market, but there certainly could be a pullback here. Like I don't think a rational person's going to say that's impossible here. But it's also most everybody follows, they don't think that's going to be the end of the world. I think the best is yet ahead, but you guys tell me what you think. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.